There you go.
Okay, call this meeting of the Budget Committee to order for May 18th. Thank you. Roll call. Linda Sherrick.
Mary Kenyon.
Aaron Hart.
Terry Kenyon.
Paul Miller.
Kimberly Ritter.
David Smith.
Jackie Smith.
Mark Crutch. Adam Haynes.
Sean Warren.
Bill Gordon.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's start the budget review. Just we finished the general fund. Is there any questions on the general fund from the last week? Okay.
Yes. I don't think we should keep the senior center open. And you're thinking about a road of 75,000. Well, we're going to be about 20% more.
Yeah, it was
When you find out a lot of that, so that's what I'm thinking.
the quotes came in for the senior center at 55,000 for the roof. Up there, I'm expecting 60, 65. The extra money we're putting in there is for the other property to make some repairs on that.
I tend to agree with you, but I think the council will have to make that decision.
But we can we not?
Yes, you can.
No, but I'm just going to ask, can we not fund it for the road?
I mean, if it was.
Up to all
Yes, we could. We could remove that funding, but it would have to be a vote of all of the board members.
But that's not a specific line on it.
No, it's capital outlay. So you wouldn't be voting on the senior center. You would be voting on capital outlay itself. And then the council and the budget officer would choose how that money gets allocated. So you don't get to make the decision on the senior center. You're making a decision on capital outlay, and you can choose to cut capital outlay, but it's how it gets spent as a budget city council concern.
Right, correct.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at grants, but if I can't count on getting them, and the roof does need to be fixed. It's also one, regardless of how, I guess personally, it's one of our most used buildings in the city. It's used almost every day, and it does serve a purpose. So I don't, there is something to that.
So. Hate to bring this up again, but can we go over how much income in total we bringing, or is the city bringing in? It was 100.
In revenue,
Right.
in revenue, in general fund, the city brings in about 170,000.
So 170,000. The debt service is almost 38.94.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you're asking for another 30 on top of that. So we're looking at 60,000.
No, wait, we'll go back to the 30 is what? What are you saying is the 30 on top of that? To bring into from the unappropriated? Unappropriated up to capital outlay to do repairs and maintenance on the two properties. Yes, I'm asking for a 30 to bring it up to 105.
So what we're talking about is property. This year will be 60,904. Right?
No, what I'm not following what you're talking about.
We're talking about 38,000. Oh, and my figures are wrong here. 38.94 for the property. And then another 30,000.
That's the payment.
Right, then another 30,000, which is 68,904 for just property this year.
I don't know that. What I'm saying is that property needs some repairs to get our insurance lower, not to not have insurance. We can get insurance on it. I'm talking to make the insurance lower, to be fiscally responsible, and to put a roof on the senior center. I'm putting money in that account for those things. I don't know what they're going to come to.
Okay.
I'm just throwing money into a capital outlay. If something else broke, it would give us money to go in there and fix that. It's capital outlay. It's for fixing, maintaining, and purchasing things that are
But you did
10 years
say
and
it
a
was
thing.
30,000 for lower Or to lower the insurance.
The lower the insurance to do some, so where they tore down the building, there's that siding. It's capital outlay. It's for that kind of thing.
And capital outlay with.
Yeah.
Is the senior center a money maker or it's a money pit?
So if I can continue on. We're spending way over half of our budget in the property. That way over half of our revenues that come in for the general fund on the property. Is that not a fair statement?
No, I don't think that's fair because if you look at the revenue we bring in over the years and you look at what we're spending in materials and services, that's taking the majority of the money. Materials and services, take out employee wages, take out a capital outlay and debt service, and your materials and services equals 164,000 when you take out the grant line item.
Right.
So if you're taking 164,000 in materials and services alone, just to run the city, now take your 170, you have, what is that, 6,000 left to run the city on. So you can't say it's the property, you can't say it's the employees, you can't, it's materials and services to run. You have a bigger
I'm just
problem.
saying the money coming into the city. We're taking a huge chunk of it. And then we're additionally adding $30,000 to that chunk.
It's a
And
fifth,
then that's not gonna make our city solvent.
well, not spending it's going to make our city in disarray and like it has been in the past 10, 20 years, and we haven't done any maintenance or upkeep. I say we take care of what we have if we can, so that it does help us in the long run.
This is too expensive.
But that's a philosophy.
We need to do it. We need to spend $30,000.
On the property?
Right.
That's a council decision. That's you're talking strictly budget, capital outlay. It's up to you.
So
But if something else breaks in the city and that money is not in there, we can't use it either to fix that.
so why is insurance so expensive that we have to put $30,000?
It's not 30, it's a bulk of money I'm putting in there for capital outlay. So I'm not saying it's going to cost 30,000. I'm putting 30,000 in there so we can do these things. And it allows for anything else that comes up, or if it's maxed out on that, I don't know. I'm just putting money in there so we have the money to do the things I know that's coming up that they've asked. Like when they tore down the building and the siding's attached and there's not that siding on there, they want to see that repaired. They want to see some repairs to the roof. I don't know how much those are cost. I haven't got bids for those. I got bids for the senior center. I'm just putting a chunk of money in there in anticipation of capital outlay, knowing we might need to make repairs. If it doesn't come in at that cost and it comes in lower, we might decide to replace the windows in city. I don't know. Maybe the windows break. Maybe the rug gets thrown. Maybe I'm just saying it's capital outlay is to repair and maintain your buildings. We haven't done that in the past. I'm kind of trying to do that now.
But this.
It's a philosophy of the council, what they spend it on.
Why don't we turn around? Oh,
That's not your call. Your call is looking at the budget and looking at capital outlay.
okay, I'm saying we're taking $30,000 for something that's probably not going to even run us a positive cash flow. Right?
Well, if the budget's balanced,
No, I'm talking about the property itself.
that's not the question this group is to argue. I mean, you can stand up at your 3 minutes in council and argue that, but council decides how that money is spent. You're talking strictly capital outlay. There's a bunch of money in capital outlay. 105 I've asked for. You get to decide if that's appropriate for the budget. Does it balance? Does it make sense? That's what you decide. How it's spent is a council decision.
That's fine, but you're putting $30,000 in, right?
Yes,
In
I'm asking
capital
for
expense
30,000.
Specifically, well, at this point, specifically, you're budgeting the property.
I am anticipating it is being budgeted
So-
for improvements to the property.
So I look at it as the capital outlay doesn't need that extra $30,000 because you don't have to use that 30,000. You don't have to use that 30,000 on the property, right?
That's not my call. That's a council decision. I'm not making the decision.
What she's saying, what you're saying, that the city council can then determine whether they want to invest $30,000 in improving their property. If they decide that the things are too tight, that they don't want to, they want to say that it's still in the capital outlay, they don't spend it. Also, do the same thing with the roof. If they decide that things are too tight, they won't spend it, they won't authorize. City council has to authorize the spending of any of the money that we are doing.
And
What
my,
you're saying is to take it out.
my point is, don't put it in the budget so you don't spend it. I mean, that's just where I'm, going from it. It's not something that's going to be making the city money.
It's,
But what she's saying.
That's
is
your
that money
decision.
Might need to be in there for.
For something else. For
Yeah,
something
other
else.
reasons.
It's like the crack
No, no,
window.
it's,
I guess
it's
the
like,
third question might be, if that property weren't in play, and this was a year without that property, what number would be there?
I don't know, because I do the budget on what I see coming up or what I think is appropriate uses of money in there. I can't even make that distinction.
At some point.
I mean, last year I didn't know the senior roof was leaking.
I get, I'm saying at some point you added.
I did. I asked for 30,000 from unappropriated to be pulled up into it in anticipation of things because I just found out that our insurance could get lower because to me, that's being fiscally responsible to make that 30,000 repairs, get your insurance. Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
saying, if that property weren't there at all, with that capital outlay ask.
All
30,000
honestly,
less.
in all honesty, probably because I would have found something else to fix. Because like I said, every window's cracked along here that we need paint, probably some electrical and I probably would have, because in my mind, as a good steward, you want to fix and repair your properties. We have not done that for 20 years. So
Doing that.
that's my philosophy. So yes, I probably would have been sticking money in there for something.
So again, it's.
So I have a question.
Where they spend.
I have a question. So you just put the money in there. So even if something happens to this building, the money is there to fix this
Mhm.
building that we're using right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's capital outlay.
thank you.
That's what you are all looking at.
Look at it as that.
Why are repairs capital outlay?
I'm
Gloria Titus.
oh, you need to be sitting up here.
Why are repairs considered capital outlay?
It's anything you make to a property or structure that has 10 years worth of value type thing. So it's your buildings, cars, sometimes equipment, huh?
Do you own it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll let Gloria to the roll call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all repairs are capital.
Not all repairs are capital. There's small repairs you make that are not capital, but when you're doing them big repairs, mostly, yeah.
I just,
That add, if they add life type things.
I just feel it's irresponsible.
Any other questions on this?
Yeah, is the senior center a profit? Does it make money or do we eat it every year? Senior center. Is it a profitable building?
I think it's a philosophical question about how much it provides for the community, and that's a council thing. You are looking purely at line items and budgets. You're not philosophically choosing how to spend the money or not, or whether it's worth it or not. Does the budget balance? Do you think the budget amount in that line item is worth the amount it should be?
Well, I just want to like get after my council members to say, hey, I don't want you to fund, or I want you to fund the senior center with the road. I just wanted to know either way, but, okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna be here really close. Okay. So we're done with the general fund. Okay. So the next one is free funds, resources. Okay, so available cash on hand. $282,016.
Copies of the budget.
I have to go print one off. We'd have to take a break for a minute.
Otherwise, yeah.
Was I wrong to think I saw one? up front?
Yeah. I think that's there, but I think I want to earlier. I'm not watching art. There's not, yeah, I mean, there is how many seniors?
That,
You realize how many seniors are?
do you know how many people use the Lions Club?
This is a
You
budget.
use the,
This is
like,
a budget.
No, no.
Budget here.
No, she just wanted to ask me a question, so I just wanted to make a reply.
It can be handled after the meeting.
Oh, we'll have it'll be a public hearing.
We have public hearing right after
And
we
it can be
finish doing all
discussed during
this.
that.
Well, it can be brought up.
Brought up.
Again, we make no decisions. This is a workshop, so, but again, your concerns are valid, and you can always bring them up to the city council in a 3-minute. That's what I see. Heard.
No, we can count on
Well, she's the chairman, she has to keep us all in line.
Give Linda a gavel.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna bring it up.
They won't.
Yes. Well,
I think so, and I left the budget market at home, so I can't.
Did she get her title signed? Did you get it? And then?
Yep.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, I think so.
we can go over
Line item by line.
Oh. Did you take the grants out? The grant line item?
For the street.
Uh-huh. You have to take that out.
Excluding grant, yeah.
Let me see.
It's almost a little,
Yeah.
little by little.
There, so that's the general fund. Farther. And we'll find out what they know.
It's actually down from last year, budget last year.
Yes.
Yeah, so adopted budget last year. Okay. This year, the requirements.
All that.
Okay, maybe.
100,000 down.
Okay.
Don't look at this because you want this to roll over. You don't want to use all your money in your line items.
Okay.
So we got to look at budget numbers.
Okay.
You sure you don't? Okay, resources on the street fund. Again, available cash on hand, $282,000. Interest revenue, 500. Highway use tax is 120,000. The miscellaneous revenue is 50. The Central Lincoln PUD franchise is 0. Grant revenue, 300,000. Transfer in from general fund is 0. Total resources except taxes to be levied is 702,566. Tax collected in the year is 0. For total resources, 702,566. Any questions?
That's line 6, 0, and last year it was 55,000.
That's the Central Lincoln franchise that I put into general fund.
Okay. On the street funds requirement description. So, personal services, we have the payroll of 65,000, Social Security, 5,500, workers' comp, 2,000, PERS is 7,000, health insurance is 20,000, and unemployment 2,000, for a total personal services of 101,500.
Is last year that was budgeted for 1.5 persons, is that still a plan, or
Yes, it's still in there. It was in the, yeah, it's in my budget message. I kept it in.
was there any effort to hire that half a person? last
No, we
year?
did not. We had a discussion with staff and did not do that this year yet.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
just something I would encourage us to do. We need that as well.
Okay, under materials and services, dues, travel and conference, 2,000, advertising and elections, 1,200, legal fees, 1,200, engineering fees, 10,000, audit and filing fees, 3,500, contracted services, 40,000. Why'd that go up from 10,000?
No, it was budgeted at 40 last time. You got to go to the adopted budget line. It didn't go up at all. It's the same.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay. Repairs and maintenance, 5,000. Insurance is 6,500. Utilities, 39,000. Telephone and postage, 1,000. Operating supplies, 5,000. Street work maintenance, 25,000. Fuel, 3,000. Miscellaneous expenses, 0. Building maintenance, 3,666. Grant expenses, 300,000. Total materials and services, $446,066. Capital outlay, 60,000. Total capital outlay, 60,000. Transfer to other funds, transfer is 0. Operating contingency, 45,000. Unappropriated and funding balance, 50,000. For total requirements of 702,566.
Anybody before I ask a question? I'm interested in seeing a little more breakdown on some of these larger line items like contracted services and utilities. Without knowing kind of where that money's going, there, it's hard to even
Well,
think of.
yeah, so the
where you
council,
through.
so in the packets every month, there's a breakdown, but it's also contracted services is kind of our, so it's kind of hard to explain budgeting. It's anything that might happen that you need somebody for. That's kind of the catch-all so that you have that money to pull out of. I use it probably instead of miscellaneous because miscellaneous is kind of a weird one that everybody would like, what's that? But it also is because we're going to use more probably with the, as I said in the budget message, if there's a contracted consultant for a measure on the ballot.
Well, this
if
is
we-
specifically streets.
Yeah, but she goes across all boards, just like payroll in some respects. So we use contracted services out of each thing if they are working as a city as a whole. So you have your IT, you have, everything, bugs, right, whatever. I can get those breakdowns, but they get in the packets every week. So we can do that, but it also is one of those funds where you don't want to go over your materials and services ever, because then you have to open your budget and do a supplemental budget. So these aren't monies that we intend. There's rollover there. If you look at that last line, we don't use all these. We want it to roll over. We want to save money, right? So some have money in them. We don't anticipate spending it all, but it's there in case something happens. We can go grab that money without having to open the budget. And so yeah, it's budgeted conservatively. If you notice, we're down $100,000. And so materials and services, we budgeted tighter on that, but there's still some money flexibility if things happen or what we need to do. Utilities went up across the board. I budgeted badly last year. I didn't anticipate. I even forgot that we were raising our sewer rates. I mean, I just didn't budget for it. That was my bad. So we went over in that line item. Water went up, electric went up. Sewer went up, it's going to go up again. So they were way astronomical. So I budgeted higher in utilities across the board on all of them because we were just way out of whack on those.
I hear
So
you.
they're at-
Almost everything you say seems to make complete
Yeah.
sense to me, but I still have questions. I look at 30,000. And I have a question like, how much of that is streetlights? How much of that is happening at the city shop? Like, and then once we know those things, we can start thinking about where we can potentially. do
Yeah,
better.
so utilities is about 8,600 a month.
Again,
Electric is 8,600 a month.
or and that includes what,
All the electric for all the buildings and the streetlights.
like everything.
Mhm.
I get it.
It's one bill we get, yeah, it actually is, it's broken down. No, it breaks down, but I mean, that's really getting into, I mean, that's weeds, but
Your meetings actually do. a full account.
yeah, most, in all the package, you could go back on the, look on the packets and it's all in there and you can see. And every check we write is in there, I mean, most times, so.
And I, even though I understand where you're coming from, but, the city council gets the breakdown. If she broke it down here, we'd have a.
Oh, I'm not gonna, but no, you don't break it down in your budget for line items, yeah.
If we broke it down here, we put it in.
Yeah.
No, and it's not it's not a good budgeting mechanism at all.
So you just want all the contracted services,
Stephanie would probably kill us.
You can get that breakdown out of it.
Yeah.
City council, you get one every month.
Like I said, it's in the
And
packet.
more or less said and done there, that point. No, kind of trying to.
Well, because they review the invoices.
So it'll say the monthly bills that get paid, it's all in there, so you can see it line by line.
It's kind of like your electric bill, you know.
I'm hearing you. I'm not arguing any of that. Just, I think if we knew that as a budget committee, we could have that information available when we do this, we can make better decisions.
And I agree with you.
But you did bring up a good question about what is the difference between your contingency fund and your contracting service?
So your contingency fund I would use if we were going over in a category. So if materials and services towards the end and it looks like we're going to go over, you're going to pull your contingency to supplement that fund. You also have to open do a resolution to get into your contingency, and you can only get in by a certain percentage. I think it's 15% of what your total is
Where
on your materials and
contracting
services.
So that's the.
No, if it's line item is budgeted, you don't have to. It's only if you go over a certain. So for instance, in general fund, we went over our utilities by a huge amount, but because we are fiscally responsible in our other line items, we didn't go over that total category materials and services by a certain amount. We didn't have to open up. You never want to go to the total max of what you align. You want to budget accordingly so you don't overspend, but you want to have enough money in there so you can do what you need to do without going over.
And you're kind of dumping that contingent. You're kind of putting the contingency in contracting. Let's just say your petty cash you're putting in contract. If that's a better analogy, that's something you can
No.
do really quick and.
Contracted services is one of those things that if something happens, you're usually going to use a contractor. And it just seems to make sense that you would put more money into that,
Oh,
that field, that line
so
item.
it is still all for contracting. It's
Yeah, I can't
not-
use, no, I can't use it for anything else. Yeah,
that makes
no.
sense.
Yeah.
Good.
But if she went over with the contracted services and all of this here, she also went over, she would have to, she'd pull from this.
Right.
From the contingency, but she'd have to.
Do a
do a
resolution.
Right.
And we can only pull a certain amount of it based on the
And
total.
that's a good fund for, say, college.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep,
That
exactly.
makes sense.
Or our security system right now that needs to be fixed. I didn't say that out loud. Yes.
Okay, so we're done
I'll be
with
down here with a gun.
requirements of street lighting. Okay, community development. Okay, so resources for community development. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Available cash on hand, 73,500. There's no interest. Planning grants, 300,000. Planning application fees, 2,500. Electrical and building fees, 25,000. Transfer in from funds, transfer in from the general fund, 50,000. Total resources except taxes to be levied is 451,000. Estimated tax received 0, taxes collected year levied 0, total resources 451,000.
Can I just make a quick comment? We're still noticing in the planning commission that about half of our applications, they never follow through on. So I don't know, you might want to think about even getting more ugly on the fees. We'll see how this year goes, but.
You mean, reevaluating how much we charge for planning apps? Yeah,
And it's just a
we-
comment, it's not really.
Yeah, I'll look at those like every 2 years. I don't want to do it every year, but yeah, because we just raised them a bunch last year, so.
So I think,
I don't anticipate I don't anticipate suggesting the council raise fees this year at all. Because we have other things that are gonna come
well,
up,
and I noticed
Yeah.
that there's like.
right?
Oh, this is cool, I got a permit. And use it, but
And just for note, remember those numbers at the bottom look big, but remember that line item for grants, that's a placeholder. It's in the revenue, it's in the expenditure. So they come in, they come out. So those are dummy line items to put it. So I could put like $1 million in there on each one. So it doesn't make, yeah, it doesn't, it may look like it's inflated, but it really means nothing. So it's just a placeholder. If we get a grant, we can use that money.
I have one more question.
Mhm.
On the transfer for general funds, is that?
Yeah.
Something that that's just money coming every year that helps fund that department, or is that for something particular?
I would say 80% of, probably 90%, if not 99% of cities in most of the probably US are subsidized, community development subsidized by the general fund. It
Yeah,
never is going to make enough to,
I don't
yeah.
question where
Yeah.
it's coming in. I just wonder if it's just a regular.
it's going to have to be to subsidize your community development. However, we did really well. And so if you'll notice, I had budgeted 70,000. We're only going to move 60,000 over. So we saved general fund 10,000 there. And then next year I'm anticipating 50,000 be moved over. And largely in part because we're getting really cheap labor. If we ever get a planner, it's going to look a whole lot different, but our whole budget's going to have to look different.
well, you can do it.
Okay. Requirements, personal services, everything is 0.
That's going to go away.
Total personal services is 0.
Oh, that's not going to go away. Sorry. Sorry, that's not going away.
Materials and services, advertising 2,500, electrical and building fees 25,000, contracted services 6,000, dues, travel and conference 5,000, grant expenses 300,000, which counteracts the 300,000 in.
Yep.
Postage 1,000, professional services 10,000, miscellaneous 1,500, planning administration staff 30,000, total materials and services 381,000. Now I know last week when we were discussing, Mark brought up about the code enforcement officer, and I think this is where we were discussing that it possibly could go in this one.
I don't see a line items.
No, we have not had a line item. It's all part of just that person does some of that. We don't have a specific line item set up for money to come out of there.
So, not, beat a dead horse, but that means you still don't have to pay. Even though that person does do some, it's still nowhere in the budget.
Don't look at me. I'm just,
Well, no, I'm just.
it's not my decision.
Tend to agree. I mean, even $100 put in there and create a line item so we care.
But anyway. Not really.
Well, what's the consensus in regard to
Well,
code
I
enforcement?
agree. I don't know where it come from, but I agree.
Well, the thing is, it can be taken out of any one of these, And we suggested that like $100, it can be taken out of advertising, it can go to 2,000.
Or I had a question about item 10, if, what is 25,000 on building, what is that?
Oh, we need that because that's the in and out for when we get electrical permits that come in and the people give us money, then Northwest Codes takes it back. So it's an in and out. So I don't want to I would suggest if you're really, if the consensus is to create a line item for code enforcement, I would take it out of the miscellaneous funds if you're just doing a show of support. That's what I would do. Cause that budget's pretty tight, really, to tell the truth. You're already subsidizing it with the general fund, so.
So maybe, I don't know how formal we have to be to ask that, but maybe we just $500 in a line item for code enforcement, just to get it on the books. And going forward, we can continue to improve that. Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to do that?
At least it gets money into specifically for code enforcement.
That's what I'm saying, it gets the ball rolling.
That's where she said.
That's where code, that's where,
Yeah.
Well, I think for this year, we should probably leave it in the general fund, just.
Well, there's
And
nothing
you're
in there now.
the.
No, we'll put it in code enforcement.
Code
We'll-
enforcement goes to-
If it is a consensus of the budget committee, we will create a line item in in community development for code enforcement and fund it at what you suggest.
so I suggested 500. I don't know who else may agree with that.
I think 500 is reasonable, for a start.
Well, I don't, but
I mean, only,
I don't want to,
We have to.
I don't want to continue to.
only because we're trying to take it out of the $1,500.
We have to deal with the money that we have kind of budgeted here, and a lot of it is.
In the context of this small amount of money in the community development, that's how you can do it.
If we take 500 out of miscellaneous and leave 1,000 in miscellaneous, it's 500. in code.
At least we can start identifying rate of plan, start sending out letters.
Well, that might help us deal with one problem place. And if we can deal with one problem place a year,
We,
we're getting forward.
I guess. Never mind. We'll go on. That's fine.
So do I hear a consensus to make miscellaneous 1,000 and add a line code enforcement and put 500? Okay, okay. So, since we did discuss it last.
I don't like it, but that's okay.
How much were you?
I'm gonna,
And where from?
the problem is where from. But now I know you're all gonna swim at me at this. We were talking about 30,000 to put into the new property to make as a contingency to make sure that it's okay. I think that's a good amount for code enforcement. And I guarantee you, if you start funding abatement and code enforcement, your downtown's gonna look a heck of a lot better immediately. Because 30,000, just picture this, 30,000 going into your downtown. Immediately, not, buying properties or that type of thing.
I don't
It's
understand what
just
you're
my
gonna do with it.
personal opinion, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering what
Yeah.
codes downtown.
Code enforcement, what are you gonna enforce downtown?
Well, I'm not gonna get into specific properties, but there are a lot of businesses that are not meeting the code.
We're not worried about businesses, we're worried about the houses that have
40 cars in the yard.
or burnt down
It-
and nobody's removing their trash.
We're
Well,
dealing
see,
with them though. What you don't understand is we are dealing with that. We are sending letters. We are talking to the owners. I do know about the burn down. He checks in every month. We do deal with them. We send out, I have a whole, if you want to know, we are doing code enforcement. We're sending out letters. We sent out, let's see, 12 violations, 7 complaint responses, 8 properties to DEQ. Just for trying, we are doing code enforcement. It's just if, everybody's so concerned about abatement, which costs thousands of dollars. So you could fund this with $20,000, $30,000. That's going to probably be 2 properties. You're not going to get your money back. That's money out the door. And you've dealt with 2 properties instead of 40. And you still have a budget that's going under that you have bigger issues that we have to deal with.
Well, you're talking about abatement, talking about getting it on the books, start finding these people. And taking it to that level.
In order to get to the fine, you have to.
We can't,
It has to go through the courts.
right. That's what I'm saying is it's going to cost thousands of dollars.
We don't have, that is, it was discussed like 3 or 4 years
If-
ago. and-
It was
If you
actually
have a
resolution.
Right,
if you have a property tax and they don't pay their taxes, the county has one option we don't. That is, they can go and sell, they can take that property and sell it because they haven't paid their taxes. And then they get their money back from the liens that they put on. We have no way of doing that.
Not even talking. And starting to find them. And then, yeah, at the point when we do actually get money, to actually do the full correct abatement, then yeah, we can go that route. But at least let's start, we've tried the carrot, now let's start trying the stick with people to get them to start doing things the right way.
If they don't pay the fine, who enforces it?
That's the problem, you can't at this point, you don't have the money. But it is on record and the amounts keep on accumulating. So at the point, say we get a city tax or something like that, at that point, then we can go full bore and we've got all this money built up in their accounts to do something about it. It's just my thought.
Would those accounts need to be brought even if that property was to sell?
I don't know the full ins and outs of it.
Tie their
I'm
hands,
just
they can't sell it.
Throwing out stuff at this point in time, because I haven't really studied it, it's more of a council type of thing. My point is simply that you need to start putting money into
And it goes away, then you're out of money.
And you can't put a lien on it without doing
And
abatement.
like I said, it hasn't been researched, we haven't talked to, even if we spent $5,000 talking to an attorney who says, hey, I know how you can get people to pay without doing the lien thing, that's one step closer. I mean, just to throw up our hands and say, oh, we can't do anything because after 10 years, the lien goes away is. But then again, I'm getting off point because that's more of a
city council.
council type thing. I just want to stick to the budget, and, I'm sorry. You gotta put a leash on me.
So is the consensus, that the 500 to change the
I
line
think so.
item?
Census is 500 with a new line of code enforcement and reducing the zoning list to 1,000. So that everything kind of balances out. Okay, are you done with your comment? What is the phone? Okay, there is resources. Available cash on hand, 113,000. Miscellaneous revenue, 0. Transfer tax revenue, 80,000. Wolfenstein grant for beach maintenance is 0. Transfer in from the general fund is 0. Total resources except taxes to be levied is 193,000. Estimated tax to be received is 0. Total resources 193,000. Requirements. Excuse me. Contributions, nonprofits, 0. Tourism promotion, 25,000. Wolfie Beach maintenance is 15,000. City parks maintenance is up 1,500. Event expense, 15,000. July 4th fireworks event display, 35,000. Total materials and services, 91,500. Operating contingency is 50,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance is 51,500. For total requirements, 193,000.
The fireworks display, is that just the fireworks? 35,000?
No. So what I've done is, in the past, what's happened is they budgeted for fireworks. I'll give you my long explanation. They budgeted for fireworks, but the last invoice due on the fireworks was in July, which is the new fiscal year. So it always started out the fiscal year in a hole with the budget because it was a carryover. So I added more to the budget to make up for that. So we're back on track where we'll still have our money in there to spend on the fireworks every year. And then I added more to it because now we have banners and stuff that we put up and we buy, and we're buying more of these things and doing more for 4th of July. We might have to rent the barge this year instead of having it be given to us, for $1,000. So I put more into that covers 4th of July event,
That was
if that makes sense. CFE goes and hangs maybe our banners and that kind of thing.
That seemed to be like the actual fireworks display.
25,000.
Is it that much? I
Yeah,
remember.
maybe 20.
And
Yeah, and we're maxed out on that. So that's just money that goes towards that event. Huh? Yeah, for like $1,000 something if he doesn't let us use it.
to go along with the potential cost of the barge, like at TLA meetings, they were talking about this a little bit in the past. We've relied very heavily on volunteers to make that fireworks show happen. And like it or not, some of those volunteers are going away, and going forward, we ought to, because we're already investing so much into doing the show, we need to plan on paying for that barge, paying for that staff. And if we can find volunteers and not have to spend that money, great. But if, you know, if we weren't if we could not find those volunteers, would we not be able to shoot those fireworks? If not, we have to budget to pay.
Yeah, it's a little more intricate than that, but anyway, that's the line item.
You're doing $20,000 worth of fireworks. Then there's at least $5,000 for the sport. In other words, for the, the hiring and basically the barge and also the people who set off that fireworks, putting them up overnight, things like that. So that the chamber always is looking between $2,000 and $3,000 above what we pay for our fireworks, just for support.
I don't think I mean, I don't know, they invoice us for the total, but
again,
and we have, this year we were talking with the new owner of the marina who owns the barge. And it looks like, we had said from going forward, the fire station, the fire guys, firemen, and our street guys would do the fireworks. So it's always in-house, so to speak, within the agency, and they would do it. But there's been some talk, so it may not work out. And so we may rent the barge and the owner might do it. And so we'd be paying. So the money's there, it's okay. And it pays for the other things we're doing. That's why the increase. Long explanation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wastewater fund. Expenses for the wastewater treatment plant fund. So available cash on hand, $574,558. Interest revenue is $10,000. Grants, $6 million.
That's the ARPA money
Yep.
coming in and going out.
Miscellaneous revenue, 0. Sewer assistant program, 0. Monthly sewer revenue, 10% step increase is $800,000. Sewer hookup permit revenue, $101,500. Transfer in from other funds, transfer in from capital reserve fund is 0. Total resources that taxes to be levied is $7,386,058. Total resources, $7,368,058. That's all we got. Okay. Wastewater treatment plant fund requirements. Personal services, payroll, $270,000. Social Security, $22,000. Workers' comp, $6,000. PERS, $25,000. Health insurance, $65,000. Unemployment, $6,500. Total personnel services, $394,500.
Quick question, is this enough for the sewer,
And how
the
many,
payroll? That's
Yeah.
Okay,
and how many staff does that cover?
1, 2, 6.
Okay. Materials and services, dues, travel and conference, $7,000. License fees and permits, $7,000. Advertising, elections, jobless news, $500. Legal fees, $5,000. Engineering fees, $15,000. Audit and filing fees, $15,000. Contracted services, general, $110,000. Contracted services, sludge hauling, $55,000. Contracted repair and maintenance, $50,000. Contracted labor, 0. Contracted services, stay, $20,000. Repairs and, how come that's so much higher than?
It's not, it was budgeted at 20 last year.
Okay, got it. So we haven't spent that much, so.
No, like I said, we do not want to spend that, but we want to make sure, yeah.
Okay, repairs and maintenance, 30,000. Insurance, 50,000. Utilities, electrical, water, et cetera, 60,000. Telephone and internet, 6,500. Postage, 3,500. Operating supplies, 120,000. Fuel, 6,000. Miscellaneous expenses, 5,572. Building maintenance, 5,000. Grant expenses, 6 million. Lakeside Airport, 15,000. Step stake system supplies, 2,000. For a total materials and services, $6,588,072. Capital outlay, capital outlay step stake is 25,000. Capital outlay equipment, 90,000. Capital outlay pump step stake is 25,000. Total capital outlay, 140,000. Debt services, loan interest, $82,312. Debt services principal, 75,000. Total debt services, 157,312. Transfer to other funds, transfer to wastewater capital reserve fund, 50,000. Transfer to general fund is 0. Total transfers, 50,000. Operating contingency is 31,174. Unappropriated ending fund is 25,000. Total requires $7,386,058.
If the sludge hauling, that is hauling solids, right? And in theory, if we're hauling solids, we could potentially haul liquids. No,
We have a DEQ permit on how we deal with our liquids that is very, very stuck in how we do it. We cannot deviate.
okay, and then the airport at 15, I remember reading about some of that. Can you tell us again what that's about?
Yeah, so historically, the city council, the city has given 10,000 to the airport for airport things. Yeah, well, that's what I'm using it for now. And then we are going to put 10,000, I believe, is it 5,000 or 10,000? Now you're gonna make me go back to my,
It was a big number.
it's 5,000 or 10,000. I can't remember, for a rainbird system, the sprinkler system, that turns it off and off if a plane's landing or something to do with, it's electronics. And we need a new one because it's broke.
And
So
it
we
has to
need
do
to,
with planes landing. And
Yeah.
part of the.
turning it, yep, something to do with that. You're getting into technical stuff that
No,
I'm,
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm interested. Only
Yeah.
because I don't mind us taking care of that piece of property. My thing is, like, questions about the senior center and things, it's like we're putting money into things, and in this case, it's something that a very tiny, small slice of this community gets to enjoy. So it seems to me that when you have, I don't know what the number is. I don't know if it's 20 people and get to use that property, or if it's 5.
this
But
has,
We're putting $15,000 into maintaining it on top of whatever it costs for the grass and the other
well, that'll,
expenses.
that all comes out of this, that 15. So it's basically a look into what it, so it gives a look for what it does cost to maintain it, because it's coming out of wastewater anyway, and that has to do with DEQ. It's not about the planes and who's using the airport. It's about us, DEQ, spraying our effluent and what we have to do to maintain and what we're supposed to be doing. So it's,
10,000.
the 10,000 is a way. Now I keep track of how much it's costing us to deal with the airport and the spraying of the effluent. That's my way of keeping track. So I know what it's costing us in manpowers.
So essentially you're saying it's 15,000
That's what I'm budgeting.
Right.
Yeah.
for being able to put the out.
And maintain.
So I'm confused. You know what I mean?
I could put more money in there. There's other things we need in there, but I'm not.
I'm just saying, I understand part of it is about the affluent and part of it is about the recreational aspect.
None of it has to do with the recreational
Okay,
aspect.
that's what I asked the first time, you said yes.
I don't remember saying yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Okay,
guess I'm just making the point that, we should as a community try to make that property more available to more citizens.
Yeah, but it just in the budget, it's just saying, hey, this is what we gotta pay to
I get it.
be able to dump. our
I'm just
stuff.
being heard.
Okay.
Along with that.
Wastewater System Development Fund,
Give me a moment, I kind of got out of line with order of my paper.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, wastewater system development fund resources, available cash on hand, 163,719. Interest revenue is 60. Other resources, system development charges, 5,000. Total resources, except taxes be levied, is 168,769. Total resources, 168,769. Requirements, materials and services, 0. Capital outlay, 0. Unappropriated ending fund balance is 168,769. Total requirement, 168,760.
Yeah, and this again is a fund that is very, very specific on how you can use it and what it is. These are development fees that are charged on new development. They can only be used in specific circumstances, and it's basically a growing fund. So we probably, I mean, for instance, we might use some on the wastewater plant, but you can only use a certain percentage and for certain things. So a lot of these line items that are 0 shouldn't have been there. It's kind of one of those funds where you're going to take the money and transfer it into another fund to be used. So that's what this is. And it's a total guess on that system development charge fees. The 5,000, that's just a guess. It's a gimme because you never know what we're going to get. So
What is the system development charge?
it's 2,200, something like that for new development.
About two.
Right. That's kind of what yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Capital reserve fund, water and wastewater capital reserve fund. Available cash on hand, 437,139. Sewer hookup permit revenue is 0. Transfer in from other funds, we have transfer in from wastewater treatment is 50,000. Total resources except taxes related is 483,139. Total resources $483,139. Requirements, materials and services. Preliminary and typical 0. Total materials and services 0. Capital outlay. Projects 0. Outlay. Church back for airport 0. Outlay 0. Unappropriated end fund balance is 483,139. Total requirements $483,139.
And this is one of those that all those middle pieces of requirements that you see are 0 shouldn't be in there. This is one of those funds that you'll just transfer out to use into your regular funds. So this is that capital reserve fund that's your in layman's terms, it's your savings account. And this is the money we have to show to get our funds for the wastewater plant. So when we go to if we get a small interest loan or we get a grant or we get, we have to take out money to finish the plant, you have to show you have money that you built up a reserve, and that's what this is. So that 50,000 is what the council was talking about last year, that we raised those sewer fees so that we could put money in because we hadn't been able to because of the interest rates and all the cost of construction. So that 50,000 you're seeing is the result of those fees being raised double. You got 50,000 put back into this fund to start that growing again. So that's the explanation for that.
Okay, library fund. Well, I'm up there. Resources library fund. Available cash on hand, 96,210. Library trust restricted funds, 33,274. Trust account interest revenue is 70. Transfer in from the funds is other funds is 0. Other resources, miscellaneous revenue 800. Library donation is 0. Special levy revenue is 90,000. Ready to read grant 1,000. Miscellaneous grants 5,000. Total resources is 226,327. Total resources 226,327. Library fund requirements, personal services, payroll is 98,000. Social Security 7,050. Workers' comp, 150, PERS, 6,200, health insurance, 2,400, unemployment, 2,450, total personnel services, 116,250, materials and services, dues, travel and conference, 5,000, contracted services, 5,000, telephone, 2,000, postage, 50, operating supplies, 5,500, donation money spent, 2,000, material subscriptions and books is 16,230, computer supplies and materials, 5,000, ready to read grant, 1,000, miscellaneous grants, 5,000, miscellaneous expense, 700, books and periodicals, trust, $70. Total materials and services is 47,550. Capital outlay. Total capital outlay is 0. Transfer to other funds is 0. We have operating contingency of 15,000. Restricted trust principal is 3,233.
33,000.
Thank you.
Well, watching it like.
I see that. 32,200 is my next to the third. I know. 32,227. Unappropriated ending fund is 14,300. Total requirements 226,327.
I think it's worth saying that I think the library is completely self-sustained. And that's really, you know, in Lakeside, we have to appreciate them trying.
They don't pay rent.
Okay.
Very valuable asset.
Okay, so any questions or anything about the budget review? Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to the public hearing to do public testimony on the public budget.
I might need to review. I don't know.
Can you go up to the
Oh,
podium
yeah.
and talk into the mic? Thanks. It's a public hearing.
My name is Nikki Wood, by the way. So I have a question for community development under materials and services. It says advertising is $2,500. Just wondering what we use that for.
Almost all, probably 90% of your land use requires advertising. And so we have to publish into the paper, and that's really expensive. It's probably about $250 each time. And so whenever you have a public hearing, you have to publish. And so that's why it's more. And then also because we're anticipating that we're going to try to go after a comp plan update, and that will require some advertising and also some notification to people and stakeholders and try to get the community involved. Might be a survey. So yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering. Also,
Good question.
with that as well, in the tourism section, the tourism is 25,000. And so I was wondering, I'm just not aware of what that means.
Tourism promotion. No, it's advertising for any events we have. Or helping with some events that draw in people from over 50 miles away. So Experience Lakeside, if the Brew Fest comes along, 4th of July could be used out of there if we needed to. Anything if you're drawing people from 50 miles away. So yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I have a question on,
Excuse me,
Oh,
I know your name.
Randy Wigan,
Thank you.
and thank you for inviting all of us here today. Okay, question on general fund, spreadsheet number 01 on the total resources page. Line number 4, COVID-19 reimbursement funds. So it's showing 0 in there.
Mhm.
Where did the money go? I mean, there was
It's a good question.
several $100,000 that was given to us, given to the city for COVID relief.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're showing previous years significant amount of money there, about $200,000 a year, so. What happened? I mean, why is it 0?
Well, it's 0 because we don't get any more, so we can't budget anymore. That money's gone. That money, we don't get that again. It was for 2 years. You got $198,000 or $199,681. Again, it goes back to that, look at your rollover, but then look at what revenue you're getting as a city and what your materials and services are. What they allowed small cities to do is you could take a one-time exemption and you could use that money as general services for your city. In other words, to operate, which seemed appropriate in our case. If you look at, again, I would go back to it, your materials and services at 164,000, you get 170, you're eating into that. And you're eating into your rollover in your money every year. And so it's being absorbed. Now, if you'll notice, we do have rollover. So it's still there. That money is still there rolling over, but it's being eaten into every year because we're not getting the revenue stream to make up for the expenses. Minus your capital outlay and your employees. I'm talking just materials and services to operate. So when you add in your employees and you add in your capital outlay, you're eating into it.
So are you saying kind of that what's left of the ARPA funds that we got over the last 2 years is basically kind of showing the available cash carryover? Yeah.
So you moved it to the available cash.
Well, we're not doing any more, so.
So if you'll notice, proposed cash on hand is 467,000. So.
One more question. I was reading through all this other paperwork about, it talks about personal services, dropped 17% this year, and yet on the spreadsheet, I'm showing about, huge increase of about 30%. For personal services, general fund. What, I mean, so there's payroll went from 62,100, 75,000, and then health insurance jumped 10,000. So we had 91,775, and according to this paperwork, it says we dropped 17%
No,
in the charges.
So you need to look at the line that says adopted budget for this year. So the adopted budget we had last year or for this year is 143,360. What we're proposing for this next fiscal year is 118,500. That's a drop of 17%. If you're looking at the estimated forecast, that's the money we're forecasting to use. You always don't want to use up to your max because things could happen. So you have money in there that we don't plan on using every single bit of that, but then we don't want to go over and we're budgeting conservatively. But we still dropped 17% from last year's budgeted amount.
Okay, so where can I find? It says
When
on the website.
Yep.
On your website.
So we won't get those actual amounts till August because our fiscal year closes June and then August, and then you really don't get a real amount until the audit comes out. So you have to go read our audit and it'll have that. So that's where she gets those final numbers from the preceding years. Those are actual numbers.
Okay, so on the personal services, is that primarily, who are the employees? There's what, 1, 2 employees?
Yeah, it's all in the budget message. So it's city manager, utility billing clerk, city clerk.
Okay. So could I ask what the city manager is asking as far as the raise and benefits in the next year?
No, I don't. It's up to the council. I don't have a certain amount in there.
Are you requesting a certain?
I haven't requested anything.
Okay,
There is money in there
yeah, I was just.
for when I have my evaluation.
You know, I understand it's based on your performance and stuff like that. I was just wondering, you know, I realize there's cost of living and things like that. Wondering, you know. Okay, all right, I think that's enough. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have one.
James?
Yeah.
If you shout real loud, we won't make you go to the podium.
Okay, good. I think that- So, one question is, the $6 million in the wastewater treatment fund grant.
Yeah, that's for, it's inflated. It's what the engineer tells me every year, based on based on our wastewater project, what we think we're gonna spend, and he's not sure if we're gonna ramp up to get asphalt in, and if we do, all of a sudden that asphalt's gonna raise really quick and spend a lot of money. It's gonna be a lot of money. So
Where that money comes from.
the ARPA, the 14 million
So
grant.
isn't that money administered by Arden Business, and so does it come through the city or does it not?
Well,
Doesn't it come from Arden Business to pay for that?
no, gosh, no, they're just administering the grant for it. So they're just checking the facts. And so anytime you have a grant over, I believe it's 10 million, I think, don't hold me to it. You have to have there's a third party administrative over it. So there are a third party, and they check all the invoices, they check all the funds being used and how it's being appropriated, and they do the accounting. And so then they give us the invoices signed off saying, yeah, it's all good to go. We check it over against ours. We sign off saying it's good to go, but we have to expend that money out of our own account first, and then we get reimbursed.
But how do you spend it?
Well, it's not all at once. It's not all at once. And that's a good question, because I've asked this question and we'll be checking into it, because that was the question I had, because the last big project, $20 million infrastructure project I had in a city, we had to get interim financing. And we don't have that here, and I don't know why yet, but I have been assured that it might not be a problem, but we'll see.
I mean, I understand the money is there, but it's administered by the Arden Business. Entity.
We don't get the money till we spend it.
I didn't think it passed through the city like that.
No.
Build after you.
No, we pay the bills. So we pay, so well, that's the question, right? So if we get a bill all of a sudden for $1 million and we don't happen to have that in our account, we're going to have to figure something out really
But
quick.
doesn't Oregon Business pay that?
No,
There.
no, the money's not there. ARPA reimburses after we pay. So we pay, and then they'll go reimburse us based on the invoices that we paid. So that's, for instance, well, I'll show you later, but I have a disbursement
Well,
was
that's
sitting up here.
Pass through the city now. In and out. So the second question, or second comment I have, I can't believe that you would even consider shutting down the senior center. That building is well used by people. It has been for years. And not only that, but the city receives $3,600 a year in income, because Quebec pays rent of $300 a month for the senior meals over there. Do you consider shutting it down as district service?
That comment was to the budget committee, right?
I don't think anybody really suggests that we shut down the senior center. It clearly has a value to the community. The question at hand may be, where we spend those funds. Do we put that in a different building, or invest that money in something that's not crumbling? Well, some of us are concerned that the building itself might not last the life of a new roof, and that over the next 5 or 10 years, that building might end up costing our city hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we have to really, before we dive into spending these big giant numbers, we have to look at our options.
It's go away.
No, I don't think, I don't think anybody would really support it.
Thank you.
Certainly been out with such a minute comment, you guys would be shocked. But I have a professional proofreader in my business. And she was looking at library fund, line item number 4 for the interest revenue. There's figures in there for preceding years and this current year, but nothing in the budget line. We're wondering if that was just a miss. Small amount might need to be plugged in there. That's all. Thank you all for doing this podcast. Yeah, line 4 on library fund resource interest revenue. There's $70 on line 5 for the trust account interest. But right above it, there's nothing for the interest revenue, but there's a history of interest.
Yeah, I'll look at it. Good catch.
Here's my last breath.
Is there any more comments from the public? Okay, so at this time, I'll close the public hearing. So I need a motion to approve and recommend to the city council this current budget. If there's no other questions. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the budget. And what was the last half of it? You said
And to recommend to the city council.
to recommend to the city council.
Second.
Well, wait, can I,
Okay.
okay, can I clarify real fast? So the motion is to recommend the budget, but with, we're gonna put a collections line item for the staff for our wastewater collections in, collections out. We're moving 30,000 from unappropriated into capital. We're doing a code enforcement line item, adding $500 to it, and I'm checking on the interest revenue, and there might be an amount in that when it goes to council.
So I said,
Exactly what you said.
what she said. So we have a motion by
Proposed amendments.
motion to approve and recommend to the city council with the discussed changes by Kim. It's been seconded by Alan. Any further discussions? All in favor? Any opposed?
Okay. For reasons mentioned earlier.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree. I just can't in good conscience.
Okay, so majority has passed it. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
We're adjourned. So.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm not judging that.